Okay, so I have two articles for you, and neither of them spark joy. As the title suggests, this is not a good thing at all. Not a good development. But let's start with Euronews. Norway advising citizens of preparations for wartime property requisitions, military says. So that's not great. Not great at all. All right. Thousands of Norwegians are expected to receive letters from the military on Monday informing them that their homes, vehicles, boats, and machinery may be requisitioned in the event of war. The requisitions are intended to ensure that in a wartime situation, the armed forces have access to the resources necessary for the defense of the country, the military said in the statement. Around 13,500 preparatory requisitions will be issued for 2026. The letters have no practical impact in peacetime other than to let owners know that the military may take over their goods in the event of a conflict, the statement said. The request is valid for 1 year, and roughly 2/3 of the letters sent in 2026 were renewals from previous years. The importance of being prepared for crisis and war has increased dramatically in recent years, the head of the military's logistics organization, Anders Jernberg, said in the statement. Norway is the most serious security policy situation since World War II. Our society must be prepared for security policy crises and, in the worst case, war. We are undertaking a major buildup of military and civil preparedness. Norway, one of the founding members of NATO, has beefed up its defenses in recent years. The Scandinavian country shares a maritime border and a 198-kilometer land border with Russia in the far north. So, this is because they're concerned with Russia, which they have every right to be, because basically Trump is giving Russia the go-ahead to go after whatever they want. They're trying to destroy, the U.S. is trying to destroy NATO, so it'll be perfectly cool if Russia attacks a NATO country. Or at least that's what Trump thinks. That without the U.S., NATO can't defend itself. But, so Norway is talking about Russia. But with the way things are going with Greenland, they might end up having to defend Greenland. Because we already know that they've sent troops to Greenland for military exercises. But anyway, speaking of Greenland, this is from CNBC. Greenland should be prepared for everything, Prime Minister says, not ruling out U.S. military action. So, even though cooler heads are trying to convince Greenland that no, the U.S. isn't going to attack. Trump wouldn't do that. We have laws. We have blah, blah, blah. They understand that Trump doesn't give a rat's ass about laws. He's going to do whatever the hell he wants to do. He's even said it. The only thing stopping him is his own mind, which, like many people pointed out, is soup. And his own morality. It's like, what morality do you have exactly? So, but anyway, to the article. Greenland Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen said late Tuesday the island and its people should be prepared for everything. not ruling out a U.S. military action as President Donald Trump doubles down on taking control of the semi-autonomous Arctic island, part of Denmark. Speaking at a news conference, Nielsen said that while the scenario was unlikely, Greenland has to be prepared as the other side has not ruled out the use of military force, in an apparent reference to the United States. I don't like that they say in apparent reference to the United States, in an apparent reference to Trump, because most people don't want this. There are even members of Congress, like Don Bacon, who's a Republican, was like, yeah, if he does this, we could totally impeach him. How about you impeach him now? Just the fact that he's threatening it. But anyway, it is not likely that there will be a use of military force, but it has not been ruled out yet. This leader from the other side has made it very clear that it is not ruled out, and therefore we must of course be prepared for everything, he said, according to a Google translation of his remarks. The funniest thing that came of when Greenland's foreign minister and Denmark's foreign minister went to the White House to meet with Trump is that they all rushed out and started handing out cigarettes to everybody. Nothing says, oh dear, than that. Nielsen said that Greenland's government was preparing an information campaign for its people, including guidelines on what individuals can do, including recommendations to have at least 5 days of food in their homes. And most Americans would be like, wait a minute, that's unusual? Because we generally do keep that much food in our homes, because most people in the U.S. go to the store like maybe once, twice a week. That's not an everyday thing. So, Greenland will also be forming an emergency response team consisting of departments from municipal authorities, the police, and Denmark's Joint Arctic Command. We must emphasize that we are in a difficult time, a stressful time, and we cannot rule out that it can escalate even to something worse, Nielsen said. Trump on Tuesday refused to detail what actions he would take to realize his aim of taking over Greenland. You'll find out, Trump said in response to a question on how far he would go to acquire the Arctic island. Denmark's armed forces on Tuesday put out releases of European and Danish military training in Greenland and said that it was strengthening its presence in Greenland and the North Atlantic. The increased presence in Greenland is a consequence of the changed security policy situation, which places new demands on the defense of the Arctic and the North Atlantic by Denmark and NATO, the armed forces said. The U.S. is part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And unlike what Trump says about how he's done more for NATO than anybody since NATO's existed and how wonderful he's done for NATO, he has from his first reign, he has tried to undermine NATO. He has been considering leaving NATO. So, yeah, so it doesn't surprise me that he's willing to attack a NATO country, since he doesn't think NATO should exist, or at least the U.S. should be in NATO. Okay. Trump has downplayed the likelihood of resistance from European leaders if he were to take over the island. I don't think they're going to push back too much, he said on Tuesday in Florida. We have to have it. They can't protect it. Okay. Nothing screams he wants out of NATO than that. Because as a NATO country, the U.S. would be able to protect it because an attack on one is an attack on all. So obviously he wants out of NATO. There's that. Number one. And number two, I'm sorry, but this sounds, I know that this, I shouldn't be saying because Godwin's law, but this sounds very Hitlery. You know, this idea that nobody, actually, no, it sounds more Napoleon. This idea that nobody can hold a candle to the U.S., that no matter what defenses they throw up, we can tear them down. So it's that kind of thing worries me, because even actual Nazis don't like it. And what am I talking about? The AfD, the far right party of Germany, doesn't like Trump's threats on Greenland. So, you know you're batshit insane when actual Nazis are saying, hold up there now. So yeah, he's overstating the U.S.'s ability to acquire things. It's like a joke, I think it was a Danish politician said that if anyone were to invade Greenland, that the Danes would be nice enough to rescue them. Because that's how harsh the terrain is. So, yeah. Yeah, think this isn't going to go the way Trump thinks it's going to go. On Saturday, Trump threatened 8 European countries with higher tariffs, starting at 10% on February 1st and rising to 25% on June 1st, if a deal was not reached, allowing the U.S. to acquire Greenland. In response, European states are weighing retaliatory tariffs and broadening punitive economic countermeasures against the U.S. Now, I have heard, actually I see this now under trending, that a Danish pension fund is to sell $100 million in treasuries, citing poor U.S. government finances. So the bond market is going to take a hit. So there's that. Also, I checked the stock market for today, which is Tuesday, January 20th. I checked the stock market and everything's down. The Dow is down almost 2%. NASDAQ and S&P are down over 2%. So, yeah, hopefully that is going to be our saving grace. That Trump is going to look at the market and how it is taking an absolute nosedive. And that is going to be the only way that cooler heads will prevail. The market is the cooler head. Trump is going to see that, and if there's one thing he cannot have is the stock market tanking. Because the man plays the stock market. He has businesses in the stock market. So, yeah. And he has donors and friends who are in the stock market. So, yeah. It is in his interest to make sure the stock market does well. That is probably the only thing that's going to prevent him from doing something incredibly stupid like attacking an ally. So hopefully that will rein him in, because nothing else will. With that, I believe I said everything I wanted to in this video. So I will see you all in the next one.